When you're writing a novel or a screenplay, there are two basic schools of thought. Outline and structure everything before you start writing. This way you have a blueprint to follow and you're never stumped about what comes next. Or you can ignore the outline altogether and just start writing. Basically, plotting versus pantsing, where pantsing in this case means writing the story by the seat of your pants. And look, pantsing is sexy, romantic even, from the click-clacking perspective of a chain-smoking writer hunched over his mechanical typewriter, nursing a whiskey. Pantsing is also ridiculously freeing. I speak of both the metaphorical and literal kind. Seriously, why are you even wearing pants right now? In this heat, pants are the worst. The point is, amateur writers who commit to pantsing typically, and I'm speaking of amateur writers, they typically have this loathing for narrative rules and story structure. Why take the time to learn the fundamentals of story when, again, you can just start writing? And while millions of people can crow about all those great American novels or screenplays they've started to write, the amount of people who can celebrate an actual finished product is infinitesimally smaller, which is all a very elaborate way to say this. Those who take the time to learn and understand story structure and the rules that shape it are then able to live very comfortably inside that structure. They can bend and twist rules to create something wholly original out of the exact same template made rote and routine by everyone else. Over Your Dead Body has one of the most predictable endings a film could ever have. It is so predictable, in fact, that I'm going to spoil it right now because it is that obvious. This is a horror dark comedy about a married couple who are plotting to kill each other. And guess what happens by the end? They learn, they grow, they start working through their issues, and yes, they decide not to kill each other. I told you, crazy fucking spoilers up in here. But that is the point about my whole diatribe about structure and narrative rules, and where the real magic of storytelling actually lies. You can jump into a sandbox that has an ending telegraphed from the jump and still make the story interesting and twisty and engaging without breaking the rules of the sandbox. For me, that's the real genius of Over Your Dead Body. The movie is obvious, the ending was telegraphed before you even hit play, but the filmmakers expertly wielded the rules of storycraft to shape a fun and thrilling little picture. My name is Crumbine. I am a writer, filmmaker, and creative enthusiast. This is Emergency Creative, a place where I explore the choices that shape movies and television and how those same choices can irrigate our own creative imagination. So, let's get creative, friends. Over Your Dead Body. Big ol' honkin' warning here. Despite the obvious and inevitable ending of this film, it still packs some impressive twists and turns. And while I try to be vague-ish, this is one of those movies that is virtually impossible to talk about without at least acknowledging some of those spoilers. So, proceed accordingly. Over Your Dead Body is actually a remake of a Norwegian film. It was directed by the Lonely Island's Jorma Taccone, who surprisingly hasn't directed a feature since 2016's pop star Never Stop, Never Stopping. Take that however you will. And while Taccone co-starred in one of my personal favorites, 2007's Hot Rod, that one was actually directed by fellow Lonely Island creative partner Akiva Schaffer. Broadly speaking, this lowbrow comedic background is important, but for a little bit later. For now, however, know that Over Your Dead Body stars Samara Weaving and Jason Segel as the married couple who are plotting to kill each other. And Timothy Olyphant and Juliette Lewis are fugitives who get caught up in the hijinks. I actually want to start with my biggest critique of the film, the thing that almost honestly ruined it for me. And to be fair, this is purely a personal taste thing. I don't have really issues with gore and violence in a properly contextualized world. Go to the extremes like Tarantino's Inglourious Basterds. If you are showing fucking Nazis getting their due, fucking A, man, I am all in. But if you skip over to, I don't know, I'll get pushback on this, but if you skip over to, late stage John Wick territory, where seemingly hundreds of anonymous nobodies are being mowed down left and right, well, that tends to turn my stomach a little bit. In Over Your Dead Body, there are two instances, an accidental murder and let's call it the imminent threat of Jason Segel's character having his rear end assaulted. These things are partially played for laughs, and yeah, I would have preferred if they had been approached differently. Now, by the end of the film, you finally understand what Taccone was trying to do, is specifically in relation to the Jason Segel SA moment. He's reaching for that extreme, I spit on your grave level of grindhouse horror to push these characters to their absolute limits. But because the film hedges the sequences in dark comedy, it does verge on the tasteless side. For me, just for me, choices were made, and depending on your stomach, for details like these, your mileage, of course, will vary. But like I said at the top, the big thing about this film is how it takes an incredibly predictable plot and still delivers a clever and engaging picture. I think it was the midpoint twist that introduces the fugitive characters, and it genuinely surprised me. One of those holy shit moments that I am completely spoiling here, but really, why the fuck are you watching film commentary before you see the actual fucking film? Explain yourselves! Timothy Olyphant's trio of fugitives are set up perfectly at the very beginning of the film. It's a news report announcing that two prisoners are on the loose and a female guard helped them escape. Be on the lookout. I love setups like that, where the film explicitly tells you exactly what to expect and then promptly and very effectively distracts you completely from the telegraphed plot twist. And that is the basic nature of how this film stays very firmly in its sandbox, using the exact same story fundamentals as everyone else, and still creates these effective twists. The premise of the movie is that both leads want to kill each other, but after establishing Jason Segel's character and his motivations to kill his spouse, the narrative folds back in on itself to reveal that first obvious premised twist that we already talked about. Samara Weaving's character also has motivations to kill her spouse. That twist, despite being the telegraphed premise of the movie, I mean, come on, it's in the fucking trailers. That twist is played as a surprise in the film, which effectively acts as this hand wave over here, distracting audiences from what's happening over there. Taccone knew that there was no way to not spoil that first twist. So instead, he uses it as a distraction, very effectively setting up the remaining recursive turns in the film. If it sounds like I'm gushing over how this film is structured, it's because I am, basically. And the reason it is so impressive is because we're talking about Jorma Taccone, director of pop star, Never Stop, Never Stopping. We have watched this guy and his Lonely Island cohorts grow up across film and television. And to see this guy pull off something as cinematically mature and, dare I say, Sam Raimi-esque as Over Your Dead Body, it is impressive, and it should be celebrated. Despite it being that remake of a Norwegian film, it still plays as a fresh and original take, which is not something we get a lot of these days. And while the dark comedy is a bit hit or miss for me personally, well, it's still refreshing to see something as unusual as this movie getting made, which is probably a testament to the attached talent. Jason Segel kills it, pun intended, playing a very different character from, say, the mainstream TV-friendly roles he is rather well known for. I'm also a sucker for stories that are about or involve creative craft, and Jason Segel's character is a washed-up commercial director, while Samara Weaving's character is a frustrated theater actress. So in a movie about these two people pretending to be happy before they end up killing each other, or trying to kill each other, we get some fun meta scenes that explore the nature of acting and performance in the context of, a performance that could actually save these characters' lives. It's very Bill Hader's Barry in that particular sense. Like I mentioned, the film is also Raimi-esque, although admittedly it probably didn't help that I watched it immediately after Raimi's Send Help, but that comparison does perfectly highlight the maturation of Jorma Taccone as a filmmaker. It takes an incredibly bold, unhinged vision to successfully blend cartoonish absurdity with visceral grindhouse gore. The final smells like reference is something like I Spit on Your Grave, because it is that particular level of extreme horror that ends up contextualizing and ultimately justifying that aforementioned essay plot point. Again, my issue is that it takes getting to the end of the film and seeing how far Jason Segel's character is pushed to fully justify that swing in the first place, which I think is basically why the top audience critique of Over Your Dead Body is its tonal whiplash. It starts very plainly in comedy territory and ends almost as a modern tribute to I Spit on Your Grave. That is a pretty fucking wide spectrum by any account. And if you do not know what you're stepping into, it's an easy way to turn off an audience. But at the end of the day, I think you still have to appreciate what a bold swing that is. And I would rather live in a world where we can make those swings in the first place than this current mainstream world of boring Disney-fied franchise hellscapes that churn out the exact same stories over and over and over again, rinse and fucking repeat. The other top audience critique is the film's predictability. predictability, but hopefully I have done a somewhat effective job in explaining how that's not always a bad thing. You don't need to reinvent the rules of story structure to deliver something fresh and imaginative, because when you are a maturing filmmaker like Taccone and you have mastered the rules and mechanics of story, you're basically playing inside that structured sandbox with total freedom to pull off something as crazy as forgetting Sarah Marshall meets I Spit on Your Grave. And if you ask me, that is an excellent way to irrigate our own creative imaginations. Look what these guys were able to pull off. Now, go make something better. That's it for this one. Like and subscribe if you like liking and subscribing. If you want to support what I'm doing here, check out my own feature film or my audiobooks. Links for everything are right down there in the description. Until next time, stay creative, friends.